Wind cuts through steel. It hums back. Some things die slow. Sign said, bridge closed October 13th. It'll be torn down, replaced with something new. This bridge has been dying for decades. Fitting, really. The world's full of places that can't quite hold together anymore. I can relate. Suppose that's always been the case. Still, things feel different now. Baby's tires shudder, low vibration through the wheel, a heartbeat. 70 feet of air and loose bolts between me and the river. Water moves like a slow lung, rising and falling under the steel. There's something about this place. The mix of rust and motion. The memories. The way the grates sing when you pass over them. The sound's almost human if you listen long enough. Maybe too long. There's a superstition about bridges that spirits linger halfway across, caught between shores. Liminal spaces. Maybe that's why they say don't look down too long. But I always do. The eyes of a generation will soon be haunted daily by a bridge once spanned. Some say water holds memory. I think it holds truth. Everything that's ever fallen in, still down there somewhere, waiting. 4 hours north, the Mississippi widens, Lake Pepin. Tonight's story isn't about what's under the bridge. It's about what the water refuses to let go of. You see, the funny thing about legends is they're a bit like ghosts. They don't disappear just because no one is willing to talk about them anymore. Unless we're discussing tulpas, but that's for another story. Legends leave a trail, if one knows where to look. And on Lake Pepin, part of that trail is a paper one. And the ghosts, these serpent ghosts, are in the water. Unquiet Realities. Episode 2. Ghosts of the Water. Our hearts quickened with the possibility. It was an eventful motor up the river, and what we saw before us was the start of a 22-mile long and a 2-mile wide section of the Mississippi River called Lake Pepin. Very similar in surface size to that of Loch Ness. Probably unrelated, but a fun factoid nonetheless. Now that's a lot of space to cover in a day, but we were fueled by the legend. The Minnesota Historical Society documented an 1871 report. It was titled, "Marine Monster Swimming in the Lake." Two men, Giles Hyde and C. Page Bonney, spoke of witnessing something the size of an elephant and a rhinoceros. They went on to say, despite its size, that it moved through the water with great rapidity. Think of that. The sheer, unvarnished terror. It wasn't legend then. It was news. An event. One of the first reported by this group of new people on the shores. Wizard, our resident cult bibliophile with the driest humor on the river, said the scariest thing about Pepe was the smiling mascot. Fair. Now, there were both these exotic animals being toured in American circuses during that time. One unfortunate rhinoceros actually fell from a ship just south of Lake Pepin, only 10 years before this sighting. Sadly, it drowned. Would have made a much better story if it were still out there, living its best life on the Mississippi. Now, assuming it wasn't take your circus to the lake day, are there any other natural or more traditional explanations for a misidentification? Sure are. Plenty. But do any of them match what people clearly reported? Let's run through a couple. If you've never seen a picture of a sturgeon, check it out. They look prehistoric and are in Lake Pepin. Sadly, not anywhere near the size of an elephant or a rhino. And while not as wild looking as a sturgeon, Saturday night is still the loneliest night of the week for the northern pike. They have been caught in the Mississippi River near Lake Pepin, almost 5 feet long. And hey, if you're a visitor, not familiar with this info, that most locals are, it would be forgivable to get excited seeing a 5-foot long fish swim past you. Our first few hours on Lake Pepin were filled with a series of false alarms. We'd spot something in the distance, a shape, a motion, and our hearts would quicken with the possibility of a serpent. We had our binoculars and our cameras at the ready. We'd draw closer, only to find not a lake monster. A hunk of driftwood, a unique wave pattern, a flock of feeding birds. It was the old same dance for a cryptid hunter. But as the sun climbed higher, the day took a turn. It got hot and we were hungry. Docked in the local marina, off the water and back on land, we headed for a pub to refuel. Food, beer, the usual bravado. Everybody's got a story and we can't help but ask. Some more than others. Summerwind can barely get through the door before he yells, "We're here for your ghosts." Ironic, coming from a man whose career was director of university libraries. We didn't let it go, we made it a verb. The Summerwind. Drinks poured, we settle into our landlocked seats. But who's buying? Knife check. Summerwind reaches for his wallet. The rest of us count up how many weapons we're carrying. Whoever's packing the least buys the round. Compass still in my pocket, habit. The kind that keeps you from circling the water twice. Comes in handy after a few rounds, too. The waitress didn't walk up to a table full of steel, don't worry. Her concern came later. She figured the whole Pepe thing was dreamed up by the Chamber of Commerce. While I appreciate her lack of faith, we did land a few leads on haunted downtown spots. So, later, out on the sidewalk, the afternoon felt like an encore. Neon buzzing, a few chords of Don't Fear the Reaper drifting from a passing car. We strolled by a few as we moved back to the marina. No ghosts, but we moved through the holes in the Pepe theory she'd been gracious enough to share as fact. Not just our waitress, it was a reoccurring theme around here. Much to their credit, most of them shared their truth in hushed tones. After all, it is risky letting an outsider in on the local secret. Of course, the Dakota's oral tradition certainly predates the chamber, as do the numerous reports from the 1800s and the early 1900s. Situations like these make me appreciate the objectivity of physical documents even more. It doesn't have opinions, changing memory, filling up with new life experiences, different priorities each day or each year. Hell, just getting worn down from being overworked and underpaid. Nope, it just sits there for decades in all its perfect mundaneness, waiting to be found. A simple paper trail isn't proof of anything, but it's a start. It's a point in time, one I can return to. Keep digging deeper, approaching from different angles, sometimes obsessively in place of sleep, other times slowly over years. Eventually, with any luck, discovering new bits of a larger story. It's got to be one of the reasons I keep a hunter's journal. That and I like whiskey, but whiskey doesn't like my memories. Waves in particular should grab a fair amount of any lake monster investigator's research. A wave is a rose? The sheer power and variety of wave formations can mimic something alive. Here, let me check my hunter's journal. I had something for this. Some of the more potentially misidentified culprits could be, here we are, unusual standing waves, lateral waves, rogue waves, seismic seiche waves, or combinations of transverse and longitudinal waves. And all of these waves can be manipulated by outside factors such as wind or objects, causing a myriad of diffraction effects. End quote. So yeah, the potential for normal wave patterns to mix and morph together into something stunning, some visual phenomena. Very likely. Not only can the waves be mistaken for a known or unknown creature, they can also reveal what's just beneath the water surface. And let's be clear, lake monsters included. Indeed, several sightings occurring around the year 2010 were from motorists that were so moved by what they saw while driving along the banks of Lake Pepin that they stopped to get a closer look. Those sightings were often described as seeing something just on or just below the water surface. It was reported to be long, oftentimes ranging from 15 to 30 feet, and creating a wake that was, at times, more than 100 feet long. But back on Lake Pepin, our spirits don't sink much, as we know the day is young. And sure, we talk a big game among ourselves, but we do know the actual possibility of having a serpent sighting is the skinny side of slim. The same dance continues the rest of the day, each of us taking turns finding something in the distant waters worth further investigation. Keel behind the helm, same partner from dozens of bad ideas, has a master's degree in psychology and still signs up for this madness. Each of our sightings turning up everything but sea serpents. Then, without warning, the water boils. Thousands of fish rocket into the air. Silver flashes. Wet chaos. Each one lands with a pop, like frying oil. For a moment, we are inside a skillet. Everyone snaps to attention. eyes darting across the surface. The sound, loud enough to drown out the straining engine. The school was several times the size of our boat. We were surrounded. Keel killed the engine on instinct, and we drifted with the current. We all readied cameras, hoping something serpenty, had chased them into the air. Nothing. Nothing but the placid lake returned. And just like that, it was over. Feels like a painfully on-the-nose metaphor for my whole career in the paranormal. Loud splash, a lot of movement, no proof, just ripples. Firing up the boat's motor doesn't cause a repeat appearance of flying fish, likely skipjack herring. The skipjack is well known to inhabit these waters and often is seen performing this way when chasing prey down. A rare occurrence for all but the most seasoned. The only slightly off thing is they usually feed closer to dusk, though large schools sometimes surface midday when chased by large predators, maybe lake monsters. We moved on to hopefully more perilous monster-filled waters. And even if Pepin has not yet been hooked by an unlucky fisherman, other prehistoric monsters have. The bull shark has made itself known as far north in the Mississippi River as Illinois, not too far from where we find ourselves today. In 1937, a pair of fishermen reeled one in, and many speculate that the bull shark is annually far north as Lake Pepin. It perhaps is less debated that the bull shark is one of the most aggressive and unpredictable species, able to attack in a few feet of water, grow to lengths of 13 feet, and have been known to hunt in pairs. A formidable foe for sure. One could let their mind wander and imagine the feeling of a mysterious bump from something in the water. You see, bull sharks are notorious for bumping their food before they bite. A startling bump, followed by a searing, tooth-filled, stabbing pain as you're dragged under the murky water surface, watching the light slowly diminish above until nothing surrounds you but a reddening darkness. Time for a swim. I know the uneasy feeling. I was circled by a 5-foot tiger shark while surfing in the Pacific. Or was it the Atlantic? No, the Mediterranean. Final answer. No, wait. I think tiger sharks prefer the warmer water, so either Atlantic or Pacific. Final answer. At any rate, I wasn't on my board, just swimming, and it was just uncomfortable. I was completely at the mercy of that shark. For whatever reason, it left me unscathed. I am ever aware of the shark potential. Water is where they live, after all. Worked that one out all on my own. We gear up with waterproof photo equipment and dive knives, just in case. Grabbing my life vest, I'm met with chiding from Keel. "You're not gonna swim with that on, are you?" I hesitate, knowing that any comment is fair game to fair ribbing on these legend trips. I choose my middle-of-the-road words best I can. "I think I might." I do, and several minutes later, a winded Keel struggles his way back to the edge of the boat and requests a life vest of his own. Vindication. We swim, more floating now, and wait. As I rhythmically move with the waves, I'm reminded of the 1983 sighting. Shelley and her brother Adam were spending the day water skiing on Lake Pepin. Their family had a 16-foot boat. As Shelley waited to be pulled on top of the water, she patiently floated behind the boat. She had done this countless times prior. This time, however, before Adam could crank the motor, Shelley let out a scream. Not like one he had ever heard from his sister. Panicked, he quickly made his way to her and pulled her from the water. She recounted something passing very near her, just under the water's surface. She said it was like nothing she had ever seen before, or since. It was black as night. And whatever it was, it briefly broke the surface of the water before they motored off. Shelley vowed to never set foot in Lake Pepin again. We dutifully check each bay as we motor on. Keel had even purchased a fishing license for the expedition in hopes of catching the best fishing story ever. Pairing his pole with the largest musky bait money could buy, we all enjoyed the prospect that every cast brought. Since nothing was striking the surface bait, perhaps putting ourselves as bait a bit deeper would entice something. So in the name of science, and adventure of course, and despite the natural predator pairs roaming the waters, the potentially carnivorous lake monster to boot, some of us, well, 2 of us, can't wait to get back in. I grab my dive gloves, knife, and Class 5 rescuer's life vest. Someone on deck. You're like a Ken doll getting his adventure outfit on. The rest of the crew laughs over the observation, annoyed that it is not only accurate, but also funny. I can't help but smirk. Damn it, +1 point. Also, I can't help but notice you're not getting in the water. Just saying. The points. It's a low stake or no stakes competition amongst friends. You know, sort of +2 points for not dying, +3 points for dying with style. It's a way we found to stay grounded. But on the water, there were other legends to keep in mind. Another story whispered in this area, one that clearly advised the observant Dakota to not travel on Lake Pepin in the traditional bark canoes. The warning was simple. The monstrous creatures would destroy the thinner-walled canoes. It was only advisable to travel on the monster's lair with the much sturdier dugout canoe. In addition to the Dakota tribes, the Algonquin and the Illiniwek all had many spiritual accounts in their history of the Mississippi. This water panther, or great horned beast, was ruler, protector, and destroyer from the watery underworld. This entire region has been home to all of these tribes, ebbing and flowing over the centuries. Just to the south of where we now swim, there is a painting on the cliff, high above the Mississippi River. Its first written description, from the 1670s, described 2 painted monsters. A man's face, beard like a tiger, long tail wrapped around a scaly body, a fish's tail, head topped with deer horns, glowing red eyes. You can still go and see the restored version today, though it does veer a bit from history. Standing on the riverbank this far north, bluffs tower above, Midwestern mountains, you can almost feel how every century has left its own layer of breath on the stone. The wind of the river people, the prayers of the missionaries, the smoke from passing steamboats, all pressed into the same cliff face until history itself starts to sound like water echoing inside rock. And maybe something was here, but is no longer, witnessed and known by early inhabitants to the land. What people once called the water panther sounds a lot like what others later called the lake monster, thought by most to be a product of a time past. What if its time is not yet passed? Maybe the statistical data can give us some perspective here. I had a few notes on this in my journal. It's right here. Let me open it up again. What I do remember, the science was sobering. Here we are. According to NSF-supported biologists, that's National Science Foundation, we've formally named about 1.9 million species. It's one hell of a baby naming book. But there may be close to 10 million out there, most still unseen. About 85% of what people think of as animals have been identified. The UN warns that, it's the United Nations, warns that thousands vanish each year at rates hundreds of times faster than nature's baseline. And the last numbers I saw on this, I believe, were an estimated 8,000, almost 9,000 species go extinct annually. But there's hope. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, reminds us that more than 80% of our oceans are still unmapped and unexplored. So when I talk about undiscovered creatures, it isn't necessarily wishful thinking. Maybe it's just math we haven't finished yet. After all, there's a lot of dark left to illuminate. But do we have any real-life examples of this? Maybe a bit of a reach, but the closest comparable I can think of is the coelacanth. It is a fish that was thought to have gone extinct some 65 million years ago. That was, of course, until 1938, when a museum curator discovered a living specimen long thought extinct. I find it interesting that before 1938, there had not even been any documented sightings of this fish, only fossilized remains. After all, the coelacanth can grow to 6.5 feet long and clock in almost 200 pounds. I know it's a big ocean, but that's a pretty big fish to miss. With Pepin, we have an entire nations of people who believed in such a creature for generations before Western, shall we say, visitors. Here's the kicker with this example of the coelacanth. There were at least 3 different regions in the world, non-Western, that knew of the coelacanth well before 1938. So well, they had their own names for it. The ghostfish to those living on Madagascar, and I've got my journal right here. Here we are. The local people of the Comoros Islands knew the coelacanth as gombessa, or taboo. They caught the fish not to eat, but to use its rough scales as a tool. And the Indonesian peoples knew it as king of the sea. End quote. So what's the point? What was my point? Yeah, so that at least 3 entire regions of peoples around the world knew of the coelacanth for generations, while Western cultures had the creature officially listed as extinct. 44 degrees, 20 minutes, 25.0 106 seconds north. 91 degrees, 55 minutes, 56.095 seconds west. Back on land. Strange how every mystery eventually comes back to boots on gravel and the smell of gasoline. Ours always do, at least. We got off the water near dark, and I can barely remember what next. Long days make hazy memories. And the road's got its own tempo. Slow ride, long memory. Every mile marker's another verse you half remember, but can't stop singing. I do remember the motel. Gritty little roadside place. Summerwind got the bed, Keel the floor, Wizard the chair, and I drew the sofa. We looked like rock stars passed out after the encore, without the fans, or the money, hell, without the talent. A few hours after the last beer, it was already time to trade it for coffee. There were a handful of cases more we wanted to hit, and at least another 24 hours before we were required to punch in anywhere. Life of a hunter, back on the road with a fresh batch of cases to work. Truth is, I don't often get to share the road with company. Most hunts are me, baby, and the doubt in my head. But this one, Keel, Summerwind, Wizard, each brings their own brand of experience and expertise to the chaos. Keel reads a scene like a therapist taking a pulse. Summerwind catalogs the world faster than I can describe it. Wizard carries enough obscure text in his head, enough to keep the dark from getting too confident. Out here, it isn't theory. It's a kind of a front line, no backup. Just us. Whatever's waiting, and the hope that the line holds. You learn quick who can keep things upright when the world starts to tilt. Every sunrise hides a new mystery. First stop, a phantom congregation at a Lutheran church in the middle of nowhere. No ghosts, but a little old lady showed up wondering when service was. Despite it being Sunday morning, it was eerily desolate. Keel quickly said we were wondering the same thing. Just made it easier for everyone if she continued to project that we were also there for service too. Back on the road, a few hundred mosquito bites later, we hit Northfield, home of the infamous bank raid by the James Younger Gang in 1876. Black water behind, blacktop ahead. Same current, different name. Private tour of a haunted opera house from 1918 gave us a history of ghosts, specifically a playful one named Ellen. Chairs moving on their own, floating fragrances, and reports of bumping into something solid in the dark. Tempting fate, I recreated the environment that experiencers were describing when they encountered the ghosts. Sometimes the cases of equipment don't leave the trunk. I encountered nothing but a substantially solid door frame in the dark that day. Past time for lunch, we headed to an old schoolhouse turned cafe. It's great when we can elevate road food from beyond buzzing gas station lights. Over lunch, we relived the highlights of the last few days as any fisherman would. The common game we play is to stress test new unifying theories of paranormal potentialities. Not yet ready for publication, but best reserved for the familiarity of food amongst friends. To be a fly on that very weird wall. Baby growls that old refrain. Carry on. Later, there was a microbrewery where randomly the opera house actors showed up, singing and performing a scene right there in the brewpub. They handed us tickets, kindly requesting our presence at their next performance. Honored, of course, but with a 6-hour drive ahead and a full week of work waiting, we knew our adventure was coming to a close. Night had settled in. The heat of the day traded places with a knife-edge breeze, tugging at my twilled jacket's collar. Habit keeps it turned up. River spray crusted on the canvas weave like salt on an old sail. Still, we stayed vigilant, keeping an eye out along the old Great River Road National Scenic Byway, an unmistakable name given to a 3,000-mile stretch of mostly back roads that runs along the Mississippi River. We were rewarded with dusty books in a forgotten little shop. Waiting. Turning for home, it seems all good things must come to an end. At this point, most of us would reach it closer to sunrise on Monday than sunset on Sunday. Sundown paints everything honest, even the lies. With a lake in the rear view, I catch myself thinking how rare this crew really is. Keel, Summerwind, Wizard, different languages, same purpose. My band of misfits. I trust them with the kind of moments you can't write down. I suppose that's a rare luxury. You spend enough nights in strange places and you realize trust is the only currency that spends. I owe more to those people than they'll ever let me say. It's rare to find friends who understand that curiosity can be a kind of faith. For a few miles, at least, I wasn't alone chasing shadows in the dark. The last few hours of a drive can get quiet, contemplative. My mind wanders from behind the wheel of baby. Last time I was in Spain, toured the Auntie Gaudi house. Hey, I said the mind wanders. Something he said. Humans don't create, they discover. My research, investigations, and inevitable misadventures never seem like a truly original creation. Hey, I try, but I assume never a new one-of-a-kind. Mind you, that's not the quintessential goal, just to be original. But isn't that where discovery is made? The new experiment that blows open new understandings? Solving a mystery, true scientific breakthroughs, a greater comprehension of our reality. You don't get there sitting at home, so I guess I've got that going for me. Those who met the lake monster carry ghosts of their own. Memories so strong, some never set foot there again. The specter of progress, the spirit of literal body, the echoes we leave in the current. Every bridge to progress is just the future's rusty connection to the past. Time's funny. There are many ghosts of the water here. I've spent a lifetime chasing what others call ghosts. Maybe they're just the outlines of something still unfinished. Or maybe that's just me making excuses for not finding anything more conclusive. Gowdy also said, the straight line belongs to human. The curved line belongs to, well, something else. I suppose I'll take solace that I'm always one step closer to knowing the unknowable by getting out there and making as many curved lines as I can along the way. We left Lake Pepin with more questions than answers, but those questions stayed with me, gnawing, inspiring. 2 years later, I found myself back motoring up the Mississippi River to Lake Pepin. But this time, the adventure was different. It was just Keel and I. We had mapped out just short of 20 lake monster sightings, and we were aiming to visit each location and stand, or float, right where the witnesses did. Would you believe the next time we returned to hunt the monster of the lake, our research illuminated a thread worth pulling that was out of this world and at the same time ultra-terrestrially in nature. This adventure was coming to an end, but we were just getting started. Maybe Gowdy is right. If humans don't create, then we must search to discover. Maybe that's what the river's been trying to tell me. Until next time, remember, some paths only make sense once you've curved away from them.